We're the #1 energy producer in the world. Soon it will be by far the #1. It's tremendous wealth, and LNG is being sought after all over Europe and all over the world, and we have more of it than anybody else. And I'm not going to lose that wealth. I'm not going to lose it on dreams, on windmills, which, frankly, aren't working too well. I know more about the environment than most people. I want clean air. I want clean water. I want a wealthy country. I want a spectacular country with jobs, with pensions, with so many things. And that's what we're getting. So I want to be very careful. At the same time, you weren't called. At the same time, it's very important to me, we have to maintain this incredible place that we've all built.
That was President Trump, of course, there at the G7 conference today, giving a bit of a non-answer to what he thinks the world should do about climate change. This, of course, comes just hours after the president skipped out on the G7 climate change meeting. The president's press secretary said he had a pre-planned meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but both of those leaders were able to attend that same climate session. Meantime, this morning, the Group of Seven agreed to a $20 million aid package for Brazil and its surrounding countries to fight the devastating fires ripping through the Amazon. The world's largest tropical rainforest has been ravaged by relentless blazes for weeks now due to a rapid rise in deforestation efforts this summer. And now Brazil's National Institute for Space Research warns more than a soccer field's worth of Amazon forest falls every minute the fires burn. Let that sink in. All right, joining me now is former energy and climate aide to President Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, Jake Levine. And Jake, this is an administration that often downplays the climate crisis. And when you look at the president's comments regarding the environment and how he did not attend that G7 climate change meeting, what message does it send to the global community?
Drill, baby, drill, maybe, for starters. It's unbelievable that just listening to Trump's statement, but that was the first time I actually heard it this morning, that his solution to this problem is to continue to extract more fossil fuels, apparently, from underneath our feet. He talks about the wealth beneath our feet, and he very clearly misses what may be the greatest opportunity in front of us from an economic standpoint, which is to build a clean energy economy, which all of these other nations at the G7 and nations who aren't there, particularly China, have already seen, and they're investing in clean energy, in wind, in solar, electric vehicles, and they're going to eat our lunch. And, the absent chair at the meeting, I just thought was incredibly poignant as an image there, that we've just got completely absent leadership on this from the top, and it starts with President Trump.
And let's talk more about that, because the president, as you mentioned, says he doesn't want to lose wealth on, quote, dreams, things like, wind and solar power. But if you look at the numbers, the National Climate Assessment found that the cost of doing nothing on climate change will have severe consequences. By 2090, you see it there, we can expect up to $507.6 billion in economic damage per year. So $510 billion. That's, real dollars and cents. So isn't that a way that the president, and frankly, some Republicans who echo his same comments on climate change, isn't that a way that they could think about it differently?
Sure. I mean, they always talk about the costs of addressing climate change, but what they never account for are the costs of inaction. And it's not difficult to start tallying that up. You just look at Hurricane Maria, you look at the wildfires in Paradise, California, the floods this summer in the Midwest, which have left our farming community in the U.S. Bankrupt in many cases. I mean, these are serious economic implications of not addressing this problem. And I think that with the Amazon rainforest, it really crystallizes a critical piece of the structural problem that we face, which is that we inherently fail to value what are the most valuable resources on Earth, which is clean air, clean water. President Trump talks about how he loves clean air. America has the cleanest air and the cleanest water in the world. Point of fact, that's not correct. But nonetheless, if he really understood where we create that type of inherent wealth, the wealth that sustains public health, the environment, our food system, he would want to protect resources like the Amazon rainforest, which, as we all know, provide a critical share of our oxygen, our water, other ecosystem services that the world and humanity really can't live without.
And so what does it mean when, when I just said a minute ago that every minute the fires burn, it's a soccer field's worth of the Amazon? What kind of loss does that represent in a real way?
It's absolutely devastating. I mean, look, what it means is that the market is valuing deforestation and clearing these forests so that we can grow soy and other crops, so that we can ranch and sell cattle and meat. But we do that to our short-term gain, but at the risk of a very long-term peril, because we are not able to maintain the natural resources. As you said it, we're losing a soccer field every minute. It's incredible. These natural resources that are fundamental to sustaining human health. The Amazon rainforest represents something like 10% of the biodiversity on all of planet Earth. And we know that that type of biodiversity goes into things like pharmaceutical discoveries. It goes into maintaining human health. And to just clear it because there is some short-term gain to be realized really misses the longer-term target, which is sustainability, health, well-being in the long run for humanity.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.